Hey, my name's Nicole Ayers. I'm the founder and CEO of Jumpsuit. We're a full-service agency that helps big brands move at the speed of a startup, and we help startups grow into big brands. We're a minority-owned company, female-owned, LGBTQ-owned, and our entire business model is actually built around the independent contractor network. So we've spent the last couple of years collecting top talent from big agencies and folks who have incubated startups and kind of everything in between. Today, I'm excited to talk to you guys about one of my favorite topics, content at scale. So no matter what kind of business you're a part of, if you're in business, you need content and you need a lot of it. You need content to explain products on your website. You need content so people can find you in search. You need content to run ads and build an active, engaged audience organically on social media. You need content to even help job seekers know if they want to work for you versus a competitor. So if you're like most companies, you have limited resources when it comes to making content, like time or team or budget. So prioritizing and creating content can be kind of tricky. When I use the phrase content at scale, what I'm actually referring to is how do you get more content faster and more affordably? So today I'm going to share 5 essential mindset shifts that need to occur for any organization to actually pull this off. Mindset shift number 1, this is not true. If you're unfamiliar with this diagram, it's often used to tell clients that they can only pick 2. If you want something fast and cheap, it's not going to be good. If you want something cheap and good, it's probably not going to be fast. And if you want something fast and good, it's not going to be cheap. So while there's an element of truth there, what I want you to understand is that your goal should actually be to create effective content. So good content doesn't have to mean high production value. It can just mean good enough for now to test. It can be an MVP. Now you can prioritize getting it out there as fast as possible, testing your content as fast as possible, so you can optimize it as fast as possible. Okay, so here's an example. We've been working with a Fortune 50 company who was losing market share to some pretty disruptive startups. And they could not understand how these small companies were able to put out so much content, so many ads and organic with presumably such small budgets. And there was no way that their big global agency could actually give them the amount of digital content that they would need at a price they could afford to keep up. So they asked for our help. They said, if we give you the same 6-figure budget that we're used to spending on a single commercial, how many videos could we get for digital? 5? 15? And we were like, well, if the goal is to get volume, as many pieces as possible, we'll make you 50. So in 2 months, we delivered 50 videos, a landing page, static ads, infographics, and a ton more. And so anyway, trust me, it's possible to get a lot of content fast and affordably. And this is especially important in digital because it trains the algorithm. So unlike broadcast, one piece of creative really just doesn't cut it. Which is a great segue to mindset shift number 2, don't put all your eggs in one basket. The old way of running campaigns kind of looks something like this. You have a single insight that leads to a big idea, which leads to a pillar piece, usually a broadcast spot or something like that. There's an associated campaign with a hashtag and a landing page and maybe some campaign cut downs for digital. And the thing is, you better hope it all works because that was most of your budget. But what if you could run lots of campaigns? Let them duke it out so the winner could rise to the top. That's what we've been able to do for this client. We saw a $27 cost per acquisition drop down to $3. And we've been able to maintain it there while cutting ad budget in half.
Our cost of acquisition before was awful. It was awful.
And how do we do it? By having lots of good enough content. Because now we can test things like messages, tone of voice, images, video length, channels, content formats. There's a ton you can learn. And outside of campaigns, you can test all sorts of things like a new product idea, or an innovation without actually ever having to spend a single dollar to build them yet. Testing content at scale can help you quickly validate product market fit, target markets, and actual intent to purchase. So the big idea here is to stop telling the consumer what they want and let them tell you. When you do that, you will save your company a ton of time and money, and hopefully make a ton of money too. And by spending less time and money up front, you're also getting the data you need to go back and justify the big campaign or a new product line without ever having to take the big risk up front. Mindset shift number 3, never set it and forget it. If you're like most companies, you probably do something like this. Create a content strategy, create a content calendar, create the content, review content performance, maybe quarterly or annually, and then make any necessary changes to the strategy. Not a bad plan, but it sets people up to treat content like a checklist, which people really like to do because they can say, look, I did all the things. When we treat content anything other than a living, breathing organism, we're leaving a massive opportunity on the table. This is one of the greatest content minds of all time, Gary Vaynerchuk. If you haven't heard of him, I am very surprised. He's literally everywhere putting out content multiple times a day on pretty much every channel. And he put out what I think is one of the most valuable pieces of content ever created for content creators, and it's called the Gary V content model. He shows you exactly how brands can scale content, which is essentially like this. You create a pillar piece, it could be a 2-minute video or a business report, and then you create strategic cut downs across different content formats. So it could be videos, static images, infographics, and you do that for as many channels as you possibly can. You get it out in the wild, you see what's taking off, you see what people are saying in the comments, what kind of questions are they asking, what's really resonating, and then you use that feedback for new content ideas and opportunities. It's a completely agile content model, and it works. For instance, here's how we've done that with Twitter. So Twitter had hired the Harris Poll. They did some research with marketers on the topic of social data. So what they got back from the Harris Poll was a typical data report, so percentages, charts, graphs, that type of thing. But they needed help figuring out, like, what's the story around this research? So we created this report. It was the pillar piece. Then we helped them identify all the news stories they could be telling from this single report, which turned into case studies and one-pagers, ebooks. We would take powerful one-liners from this content that could serve as digital ads or organic tweets. And so within one pillar piece, we were able to create a year's worth of content. And because it's Twitter, they were especially suited to stay on top of the conversation. So anyway, back to Gary Vaynerchuk. I am going to throw him a little shade because it certainly is not as easy as it looks, and definitely not everyone can be as successful doing what he does. He's a charismatic guy. He has a full crew of people that literally follow him around all day, filming and editing content for his personal brand and his professional brands. And not to mention, he's the boss. So he can kind of say what he wants and approve anything that he wants, and there's an agility there and a luxury that a lot of brands don't have. So if you have a brand that's built around a strong personality, this can be an incredible model, especially if you're working with influencers or thought leaders. But if you're a brand built around a product, especially if you have like a ragtag team on a shoestring budget, or even if you're a big brand with tons of legal and compliance, the red tape really doesn't set you up for success. So you can't just document. In this case, you actually have to create, and your creative has to be strategic, and other people have to approve it. Which brings me to mindset shift number 4. Eliminate the red tape as much as you're able to. Before I started Jumpsuit, I was a creative director for a big global agency. I got a front row seat to all of the people and all of the processes that were in place to make a big account run smoothly. There would be times when there would be 10 people in a meeting reviewing the creative of a single email. That's an expensive email. There were 10 people in the room because the account person was the only one who spoke to the client directly. They understood the relationship. The strategic planner was in the room because they were the one who had developed the strategy. The creative director was there because they ultimately would have to present the work, and then their team, the copywriter and designer and whoever else worked on the work, they were there to defend their decisions and go make any internal revisions before a client ever saw the work. And we had data and analytics people because they'd need to eventually evaluate performance. And then, of course, there's always a project manager there to keep everyone on track and establish clear next steps. And all of this was before the client ever saw the email. So you can imagine if the client had feedback, which they almost always do, they would tell the account person, who would tell the project manager, who'd tell the creative director, who'd tell the copywriter and designer, who'd have questions that the creative director wouldn't necessarily have an answer to because they weren't the ones speaking to the client. And that expensive email just got even more expensive. So one of the things that we did at Jumpsuit to eliminate red tape is we don't have account people. We have producers who are incredibly talented people who can wear multiple hats. So they can wear an account hat, a project management hat, and it actually also brings some sort of strategic or creative value to the table. So for instance, if the email needs to be slightly wordsmithed, they can do it without involving the whole team. It's agile, it's cost effective, and clients love it. They get to work directly with the ones doing the work. Another way we've eliminated red tape is by killing the dog and pony show. I think too many agencies hide behind the curtain. They spend 2 to 4 weeks in a dark room. You don't know what they're doing. They're, spending time evaluating ideas and polishing the winning idea, practicing the big pitch so they can show up and blow the client's socks off. Sometimes that works, but oftentimes clients want to see other ideas, don't they? Where they have feedback that would have been really helpful starting out. So now it's back to the whiteboard. So at Jumpsuit, we leverage startup principles like being iterative. We don't wait until something is perfect to get feedback. We kill ideas fast and we show progress frequently, which makes us feel more collaborative. We use collaborative tools like Envision and Frame.io where clients can get in there with us, share ideas, give feedback, and essentially we're building strategy and creative together. And the last thing I'd say is we bring a level of discernment to the process. We know the rules and we know when and how to break the rules. So does a video always need storyboards? No, especially if it's a simple enough concept to explain or execute. Mindset shift number 5, creativity has no end. By this point, I hope that you have been convinced that you can't have content at scale. It can't happen without a strategy that's agile and a culture that's curious. But it also can't happen without creativity. So let's say you're shooting a video. You have your script, you have your storyboards, you have your shot list, everything that you need to make sure that you get everything you need to pull off that single piece of creative. But what if while you're on set, you captured some behind the scenes footage? You don't know what you're gonna do with it yet, but you get it anyway. And when you're shooting the product, maybe the director says, hey, can we get a shot of a hand sliding that in? Again, you don't know what you're gonna use it for, but now you've got it. It's these little decisions that are made along the way that really don't take much time or effort, but it's a mindset shift. So now picture you're in post, you've made the 60-second spot that you're there to shoot. But now, challenge yourself. How many 30-second, 15-second, 6-second versions can you make from that single spot? And what if you killed the voiceover and used on-screen text and tested different messages? What if you use the behind-the-scenes footage that you grabbed, and now it's perfect B-roll for a case study or a culture video, something that you could put on social media to help people decide if they want to work for you? Because now you just help them imagine what their life would look like in that environment, working with those kind of people and that kind of work. If you're a brand that's trying to figure out how to get more content faster and more affordably, remember these 5 things. You can have all 3. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Never set it and forget it. Eliminate the red tape, and creativity has no end. Thanks so much for your time. If there's anything we can ever be helpful with, helping you shift culture, change mindsets, or pull some of this off, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thanks.